to the Living in the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by actor, writer, director, producer, stand-up comedian, and self-development expert, Michael Stein. Michael is also the host of the Long Shot Leaders podcast. Ever since the age of 19, Michael has been an entrepreneur. He was the #1 young nightclub promoter in the city of Los Angeles. So we're going to be talking to him about his life and everything he's doing. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today.
Curtis, what a voice you have. That's smooth. I'm just listening to that. I could go for a glass of wine right now, some lit candles, and just listen to you all night. I love it. I love your voice. You should do voiceover.
I'm actually trying to break into it on the pay-to-play sites, and I'm a radio DJ as well.
I love it. Sounds great. All right. What can I tell you about myself? Well, you are correct. Yes, I do a podcast called Long Shot Leaders. We tell the story of underdogs who have found success. People that overcome large obstacles. And the reason why I do a podcast like that is my backstory is I consider myself coming from a long line of underdogs. My grandmother escaped the Russian concentration camps on her way to America. My dad was a New York homeless street kid, became a multimillionaire only to be a homeless person again. And I myself was a homeless street kid, became a multimillionaire only to be a homeless person again. And I myself was an unplanned child, premature, health issues, ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, put in a special needs, for about a year, for special needs school at UCLA for an alt school. And when I was in third grade, and then came back out of that, and then really didn't have much success other than making people laugh and laugh at me until my second bit of success, like most young boys in this country, saw the movie Rocky when I was 11 years old. And I said, here's a guy like me. He's funny. He constantly fails, keeps on trying. But the only difference between Rocky and myself was that he was physically fit. So I decided to that was my thing. I was going to be physically fit and every day. And then I turned 16. I became a physical fitness trainer. And then I said, well, if I could do those two things, make people laugh and, be physically fit. And I'm going to become an entrepreneur and an actor and a stand-up comedian. That's what I wanted to do. And I'm not going to listen to her. And then I decided to start a business the day after high school, failed miserably. So I started to see this ebb and flow of failure and success, early on in my career. And that's why I do a podcast called Long Shot Leaders, because eventually I decided, okay, a month after I failed, I said, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. Finally, I was 19 years old. Started that, and I packed the house, and I said, well, if I could do this with comedy, I could do this with nightclubs. Became the #1 nightclub promoter in Los Angeles, my age bracket. From there, it started a trajectory of acting, which my first acting role was playing Dirk Diggler in the Dirk Diggler Story, which became the movie Boogie Nights, which I appear in as well, and became a filmmaker. And I'd had an ebb and flow of success and failure from there too. And until finally, I almost got a movie deal. I was flat out broke and decided to start a business to pay for a movie. Within 6 months, I made $500,000 for that business. I was able to make a movie with Faye Dunaway, Andy Dick, and Coolio. $500,000 for that business. I was able to make a movie with Faye Dunaway, Andy Dick, and Coolio. Found myself writing, directing, acting across a 2-time Academy Award winner. And then finally decided, I'm going to keep this business that made this film. And since that business has made over $100 million, and I decided to do a podcast one day, talks about underdogs, people that have found success. And that's why I'm here with you today.
So you've went through a lot of failure and success in your lifetime. What is your top 10 recipe for success?
Well, the first thing is to know who you are and why you do and do what you do. If I was talking to the young me, I would go back and I would say, I would do an inventory. I would tell you to talk to that kid and say, do an inventory of yourself. What do you want? And what are your likes and dislikes as a start to really, find out what your overall goal is, to get clear. The goals are supposed to be specific, right? Smart, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. So get clarity on who you are, what you want, the who, what, where, why, when, and how. Then I would say learn how to control your emotions, which is there's the triad of emotions, right? Your physiology, your focus, and your words. And I would say, what does that mean? That means like, well, we find ourselves in failing situations, and you're constantly, you got to learn how to be an athlete when you fail, so there's always a system. If people usually inherently when they fail, they go over the failure and they do an incantation where they can't do something because they keep on going over saying, I failed at this, I'm no good at this. Why did that happen? And those are non-empowering questions. They don't empower you in the right direction. So I get your physiology straight. There's a recipe for that. Stand up straight, deep breaths, get some oxygen in your body. Stand up straight, deep breaths, get some oxygen in your body. Chin up, get your physiology. Then right away, your focus, what you're focusing on, is it going in the direction you want to go in? Your words, mind your words and your questions. Ask yourself empowering questions for the circumstance and say, look, my car broke down. I'm going to miss the party. I'm not going to be able to get that movie deal because the director is there and or the producer. Well, what's great about this? What's funny about this? What can you learn from this? If there was something funny about it, what can you write about this? Anything that's empowering. So I would start to, those are the keys to success, the beginning stages of understanding yourself and getting your body and your mind and your, how you tick. It's a lot of psychology involved. We can go on a lot longer than this, but that's the first place that I would start, in that direction.
Speaking of psychology, you have a phrase called human needs psychology. Tell us what that means, and also talk about your personal development background.
Okay. Well, I'll start with personal development, the latter. I started personal development right around when I started promoting nightclubs when I was 20 years old. 1990, Tony Robbins, he just came out with that cassette tape thing, and I took to it, and I've pretty much ever since done everything that Tony Robbins has ever done, or Wayne Dwyer, and NLP, neuro linguistic programming. So I have a big background in personal development. And 6 human needs psychology, to be specific, is a theory. It's not an exact science, but it's almost a perfect art form where people do things for 6 reasons: certainty, uncertainty, growth, significance, love, growth, and contribution. So, certainty is a survival need. Uncertainty is a variety need. Significance is to make us feel important. That's a need. That's a healthy need. Love, growth, and contribution, the higher consciousness need. That, or what about this? And all roads kind of lead to these needs, and it's not just Tony Robbins or Chloe Madonis who kind of, got narrowed it down to 6 human needs. Human needs psychology has been around, I think, since really the 30s. I forgot the name of the person who invented the theory of human needs psychology, but who really kind of, theorized it. But basically, there's negative vehicles and positive vehicles and how you could attain those emotions, right? So, Mother Teresa, she decided, I'm going to have my cause celeb, and the reason why I'm going towards these to make me feel significant is to contribute, and they're intertwining with each other. Another person said, well, why do people join gangs? Well, maybe because, they're going to get a lot of the human needs met, they're going to feel significant because now they're with a gang. They're going to feel certainty because they feel security because now they're protected. They're going to feel connection with brotherhood. They're going to feel a love. They're going to feel a love, an actual love, and what they know is love because they're not getting a home, and that's why they're in a gang. So you get these needs met. You get 4 out of the 6, you're going to have a good day. Whether it's a negative vehicle or a positive vehicle. What you want to try to do is have your human needs met with a positive vehicle, which is, well, another personal development thing is, what's a good decision, right? The triad of a good decision. If it's good for me and it's good for you and it's good for the greater good, chances are that's a good decision. The tough decisions are, like politicians that have to say, okay, it's good for me, it's good for you, it's good for the greater good of the country, but it's not good for the greater good of the other country. Those are the hierarchy, decisions. But most day to day, on a one-on-one basis, we can come up with a good decision. And that's kind of like the basis of human needs psychology in a Reader's Digest form.
As a child, you had health issues like ADHD, dyslexia.
slowly but surely. Um, I, dyslexia, I had a form of dyslexia, and when I was a kid, they took me to a specialist his name was Dr. Getz. He was in the Los Angeles area. He did a lot of exercises. It's something that you learn to kind of live with. It doesn't fully go away, but there are exercises. That's technically one thing that I did. As far as ADD, I don't know. I had ADHD. They didn't have a phrase for it. When I went to school in the late 70s, it just was a thing. That like this kid's got, he's hyper when he's supposed to be calm. He doesn't speak up when he's supposed to be energetic. He says inappropriate things. Sometimes just blurts things out. Very impulsive. To really overcome them, it was a lot of trial, a lot of failure, just a lot of mistakes, and the want to do certain things, and to be successful at one thing. Then I said, okay, man. And when then you're successful at the second thing, you try to be successful at the third thing. And every time you strive for something, you have to go through a learning process. And that learning process, wanting to be an actor, a filmmaker, an entrepreneur, it forced me to study, to apply, to try to win. And through pushing myself, because it was hard for me to go to school, I had to be self-taught at my own pace. And I had to constantly push forward to that. And a person, some people can go to school and they can retain the knowledge they have. Me, it's an everyday thing. We've been talking to you today, right now on this podcast, regurgitating some of the content that we're talking about puts it back in my nervous system and keeps me on point. So it's a slow but gradual process, but time plus effort plus adjustments equals eventual probable success. And that's the best way I can explain.
Well, talk about how your experience in the film industry helped you create a company unrelated to the film industry or Hollywood.
Yeah. So, I was not, when I wanted to be an actor and a filmmaker, but I couldn't write well. I was still a poor student. I barely graduated, and I was a nightclub promoter. And a nightclub promotion, you don't really need to do much writing. You're just talking to thousands of people every night. So I'm learning about human intellect on a fast track basis, but I really wasn't a good writer. But pain, what happened, as I said, I wrote a letter to somebody in the film industry, and they told another person, they said, look, just the syntax, the punctuation, the spell, it's terrible. This guy, and it hurt me so bad that and even the vocabulary, so I just immersed myself with, books on tape and content and just the drive to want to do that so badly. So I studied it, and I studied those things until eventually, when I was a filmmaker, I prepared so much and immersed myself. I made an award-winning short film. And because of that hyper, the good thing about being an ADHD, you got that hyper focus, right? So then I was able to go through those hills and valleys of that stuff and really push myself. So even though the film career, it did well, it almost got me a movie deal, and I won many awards from anything, but monetarily I had to go to something else, which was this business. So by the time I hit the business and I went through so much failure and so much journey to try to excel at something else, the creativity level, the writing, the content that you have to put in my particular business, I sell a widget. So I had to build a website. I had to, it's easier to build a website than is the right. So I had to build a website. I had to, it's easier to build a website than is to write a screenplay. So writing content for a website is much easier than writing content for a screenplay. So it helped me greatly by going through all those things. Everything was intertwined, and everything you learn along the way can apply towards the next thing. So I liken that and that question that you just talked about, say, it's kind of like Zig Ziglar, a great personal development person. Anybody doesn't know, he has this analogy where you pump a water pump, those old school water pumps, the water keeps on going up that big pipe underground. You keep on pumping and pumping and pumping, and the water almost goes over to the top and starts overflowing. But some people give up and the water just goes back down. Well, sometimes, you build up that and then you jump into the next thing because the first thing wasn't working, but you've been pumping all that time. all that is built up. All that's credit. And so none of these things are a waste of time. They actually exponentially help the next thing. And that's how film career actually helped me in my entrepreneurial career.
This next question is a two-part question. Tell us about the film that you worked with Coolio in and what that was like. And also talk about your favorite film to be in Hollywood, or maybe your favorite actor or director that you work with.
Okay. Well, I did this movie, Love Hollywood Style. Start off with that. Before that, the reason why I did an award-winning short film called Rituals and Resolutions. Got bought by HBO, almost got me a movie deal, met everybody in Hollywood. And after a couple of years, there was no movie deal. And I was so frustrated. So I said, screw it. I'm going to make my own movie. Only problem is I wasn't on nightclub promote anymore. I burned all my money on this film, which did well, but just no movie deal. So I was broke and in debt. Promote anymore. I burned all my money on this film, which did well, but just no movie deal. So I was broke and in debt. I said, but I'm going to make my own movie. So I said, I'm going to become an entrepreneur again. So I became an entrepreneur. I started this business, online business, had nothing to do with, Hollywood. And I made that money that I told you about. And I was able to make this film, Love Hollywood Style, which was a film that no one would ever let me make. It was an outrageous comedy mixed in with drama. And it had 4 intertwining stories. And I knew I can get the talent for one day for this person or that person. So I was able to get Faye Dunaway to play God because I knew I only needed to shoot her for one day. I knew I can get Coolio for one day because we had a mutual friend. He was working on a set. And I said, I'll just go by there and guerrilla, a crew over there to hijack him on his lunch break and do the whole thing right there for an hour and a half. And was able to get that. And Andy Dick just needed him for one. So that was the beauty of doing this intertwining story. So my experience on Love Hollywood Style was fantastic. It was, I was the one that got to act with Faye Dunaway, 2-time Academy Award winner actress. And that was like phenomenal. And that was what Love Hollywood Style is all about. And that's why Coolio, his part was playing himself. And he was talking about the rise and fall of a rap star named Montel Meshuggah, who is a symbol for civil rights, because that's when rapper, they were talking about where's the rapper from and is he hard? And this was a whole play on how this guy wasn't hard. He was also a cultural phenomenon. He was a mixture of, because there's at the time rap was so caught up in race, this is the white rapper, a black rapper. And to me, I always thought those lines, were silly. So Montel for civil rights, it was a very over-the-top comedy vignette, a part of the movie, to where he was a black, white, African-American, Jewish, rap star named Montel Meshuggah. And he goes through this whole typical Tour de France, story in a behind the music. And narrating this is Coolio, talking about how great Montel was in the heyday. And Montel goes through this whole crazy life story. And there's a Twilight Zone funny thing at the end with Montel that kind of poetically tells his story and what, Love Hollywood Style, and how, everybody at the end of these vignettes shows how dysfunctional Hollywood is and how love can be crazy and dysfunctional, and how it's buttoned up at the end with something that's, a new equilibrium of understanding of higher consciousness of what that crazy story was about, that each one of those things were about. And Coolio guest talking about Montel, kind of like a behind the music-esque kind of thing. That was Coolio's part in Love Hollywood Style. And as far as my favorite director that I've ever worked with, well, the best director I worked with is, my friend who, put me in Boogie Nights and the Dirk Diggler story, is Paul Thomas Anderson. That's by far the greatest director I've ever worked with. I've worked with other great directors, Bill Joanno and Joel Schumacher, and I've met a lot of other directors, but I think that Paul Thomas Anderson is the best one I ever worked with. One of my favorite directors is Quentin Tarantino and Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese. I think those guys are super great. Tarantino to me is just so awesome, so different. And those are my favorites.
What advice would you give somebody who wants to run it and have a successful business?
Well, prepare. 95% of success is preparation, right? So prepare as much as you can stomach. But most importantly, once you've analyzed and done vetted it out and what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, where you're going to do it, why you're going to do it, the who, what, where, why, when, and how. Once you've done that and you have been preparing, you have to set a goal date of launch. I'm really big on dates, and you have to just set that date and set yourself up for a win. Make sure it's attainable. But you set that date, a SMART goal. Once again, SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. So you set that date and then work backwards. Make sure that you set that date and then work backwards. Make sure that you have more than enough time to reach that date, and be clear and prepare. And those are simple things, but those are things that people skip sometimes, and that's why they fail. They get lazy, or sometimes there's that preparer person, that person that constantly prepares and then they don't execute. So you got to really, there's people that sleep on it. Say, well, I'm going to do that, but I haven't done it. Well, the best way to start is do immediate action. Whether you say, I want to start a business. Well, do something after you write down your initial idea. Do something immediately, because immediate action is what causes your brain to start that motion. And then when you stop doing that thing that you've already started, brain says, well, wait, got to keep on doing this, because if you stop, that'll be cognitive dissonance. So you want to get in a pattern of going for that goal. And so I would say prepare, set a goal date, make sure it's attainable, beyond more than attainable, and then attack preparing towards that goal date. Take immediate action though, the moment you decide you're going to go after this goal. And then do not skip that. You enter in, whether you're going to fall flat in your face or not. You have to enter in the game when you said you're going to enter into it, regardless. And that's how I would tell people. That's the bones of getting ready to start a business.
Tell us about any upcoming projects that you might be working on that people need to know about.
Okay. I am doing a documentary. Called Burning the Boats. We just found the footage of that crazy film Love Hollywood Style. So we're doing a documentary on that film about, the question between passion and opportunity. We're going to get together with Robert Rodriguez, who did a movie called El Mariachi. And he's the person that's famous for, giving blood and doing the movie El Mariachi for $6,000 and everything. And so we're going to be doing that documentary called Burning the Boats. The podcast that I do right now is longshotleaders.com. And we just launched that in March. We are searching for people that have long shot stories. Anybody that out there that has overcome large obstacles to find success. Those are the people we want to talk to and have on that show. And I promised myself and some friends that I would be doing stand-up comedy at the end of the year again, because I haven't done stand-up comedy in a while. So once COVID's now start getting it done, I'll be able to do that. Continuing to grow my business. We have a product line coming out in a little over a year from now. So those are the big things. And if anybody wants to know more about me, they could always just go to longshotleaders.com and find out more there.
Other than longshotleaders.com, are you on social media? Give out those social media links so people can stay connected with you.
Absolutely. You can always just find me at Stein Media, wherever. But if you go to longshotleaders.com, you'll see all of my social right there. You got to do everything these days, right? So we're on, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Pinterest, the whole nine, the whole shebang.
You have any final thoughts before we close it out?
Yeah, sure. I'll just end with this. Emotions are only as good. Your life is only as good as the emotions that are lived within that life. So make sure that you have good, positive emotions. And remember, that's what comes first. Happiness comes first, gratitude comes first. Then usually you'll find the success that you want once you've established that as a foundation. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, longshotleaders.com, Stein Media on social media platforms. Be sure to follow, rate, review, and share after listening to this episode. Android users, go to the Google Play Store and download the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast app. Michael Stein, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.